I'm going to show you some fun creative ways to use those scrap wood pieces. Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. Today is the What Would You Make challenge hosted by my friends Connie of Connie's Wood Shop and DIYs and Brenda of Rustic and Lace. This month, Kathy Jo of Kathy Jo's DIYs is our guest host. This challenge is to create anything we'd like with wood. Let's get into it. I had a lot of random plywood laying around, so I cut some pieces down. 6 pieces, 6 by 6 inches. I thought it would be fun to use these pieces to make up a collage, and I have a lot of random hardware, odds and ends, so we're going to incorporate those too. First thing we're going to do is base coat all the fronts white. I'll give each 6 by 6 wood tile a single coat of acrylic white paint, and this is really just so that you can't see the wood through my lighter collage paper. I'll paint the sides with 2 coats of black paint. I'm not going to bother to do the back because I'm going to hang these, so you're not going to see it. Save myself some paint. Whenever I'm on Pinterest and I see a vintage image that I like, I pin it to a vintage board. So I went on there and I grabbed some of the images that struck me. Some I merged together in Photoshop, others I just used as is, and they're going to be the backgrounds to each of our tiles. I'll start with this image of a vintage typewriter. It's a close-up of the keys. I love this. It's got a real industrial vibe, and that's how I roll. So I'm going to apply a top coat of Mod Podge to my tile, and then we're just going to lay the paper right over top of that. I tore the edges of the image because I wanted that deckled raggedy edge. You know, looks more vintage. You feel me? So I'm going to do my best to center this on the tile, but I'm going to leave a little bit of the wood showing around the border. I'm just going to burnish it with my hands. I'm not going to worry about any wrinkles because I'm going to sort that out later. And just as a heads up, if you're printing your images on an inkjet, you're going to want to spray them with a clear matte sealer or hairspray. Otherwise, if you use Mod Podge, it's going to make the ink run. So you don't want that. And of course, I'm going to apply each of my backgrounds in the exact same way. Now that I have all my backgrounds in place, I'm going to do the parchment and iron method. This is the first time I've ever done this. So I have a piece of parchment paper. I'm just going to lay it over top of my image. I've got my iron all ready to go on the lowest setting. And I'm just going to press along the parchment paper and hope that this works. It works for everybody else. So I got a good chance, right? This is supposed to move any wrinkles that you have in your paper. And guess what? Worked like a charm. I'm going to use some of Tim Holtz's vintage photograph distressing ink along the edges. And then I'll go over that with some black ink too. So we'll get this distressed and then we're going to add some vintage buttons, right? I want it to be nice and grungy. There we go. All 3 of my buttons are metal, so I'm going to use some E6000 as well as hot glue to attach them to my tile. You know, the E6000 is for the permanent attachment and the hot glue is just for the immediate grab. I thought the buttons added a nice dimensional element. And that's it for this one. It'll get a coat of clear matte sealer too. Each tile will. Here we have a vintage coffee ad, and I'm going to add this little clock sticker. I thought this would be the perfect addition since the coffee cups already have clocks in them. So I'm going to get that on there, and then we're going to do the distressing around the edges. Again, I'm using the vintage photograph distress ink and some black ink. I want each of these tiles to be able to stand alone, but also to work together as a collective. You know what I mean? I flattened out some Model Magic and made a little tag, painted it black, and I added the word fresh to a piece of paper that I tore out. I'm using some 3-in-1 glue and hot glue, and I'm going to apply it up in the top corner here. I also made some coffee beans from Model Magic, and I'm going to put them down here by our wee clock. I'll ink the sides of this tile too, just like I did with the others. To create a faux vintage typewriter key, I punched out a small circle from flattened Model Magic clay. I stamped it with an @ symbol, and I'm going to glue it to this little metal washer. I'll use 3-in-1 glue to attach it, and then I'll use E6000 and hot glue to attach the washer to the tile. I also made little tags that say clickety clack. I did this the same way. I flattened some Model Magic clay, cut it to size, painted it black, and glued my paper to the clay. And now I'm using both 3-in-1 glue and hot glue to attach them up here in the corner. Now we'll add that little faux typewriter key. Again, E6000 and hot glue. If I can't find something in my stash that I think is appropriate, you know I'm going to pull out my Model Magic and make something. I love how this one turned out. On to the next. So here we have a vintage milliner's sign. Once I get all my distressing done, I'm going to add some sewing elements. I wanted to add a thimble, so once again, I created one out of Model Magic. I painted it drizzle gray, and I distressed it a wee bit with some black paint, and now I'm going to attach it to my sign down here in the left corner. Up in the top right, I'm going to add a vintage bobbin, and I'm going to attach that with E6000 and hot glue. And that'll be it for this. I love this one too. Moving right along. This one I created the background in Photoshop. So I took a graphic that had a bunch of random numbers and vintage looking text. I added a piece of clipboard of a date stamp, and then I printed it out. So once I get this tile all nice and grunged up, we'll add our dimensional elements. I cut a piece of hardware cloth to size. I made it look like it was rusty with some cinnamon and Mod Podge. I'm going to staple it right to the center of the board here. And I also have a metal 9. This is from the Dollar Tree, you know, those wee numbers you can get. Painted it black, added some rust, and now I'm going to use some E6000 and hot glue to attach it. And I'm going to make sure that the 9 hides that staple. So I'm going to glue it right on top of it. Some of my E6000 leaked out onto that little pad, so I'm not wasting it. I'm going to use it all. And that's that. As you may know, I also have a thing for vintage telephones, so I created this background from, again, elements I found on Pinterest. We're going to grunge it up, and I have some cute things to attach. I have this round faceplate from an old door lock, and I just added the number 7 to the inside of it. And since it already has holes for screws, I'm going to utilize those. I'll draw pilot holes, and I'll add screws to attach it to my tile. And then I dab some black paint onto the screws to hide them. I made another wee tag that says hello. I'm going to glue it just above the telephone, and then I'm going to attach a little clip. I took the clip apart so it's only half of the clip, and I'll glue that on so it looks like the clip is holding the tag. You feel me? Kind of as a throwback to when you used to have to write messages down when you got phone calls. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All of these will get a coat of clear matte sealer to finish them off. Here's a final look at our tiles. Making collages, especially from found items or just pieces that are laying around, is one of my favorite things to do. I find it very relaxing, and I love the way it looks. I hope you like them too. I can group these all together, or I can use them individually. or in groups of 2 or 3. Well, you get the idea. I am really happy with the way these turned out, and I'm going to add to them in the near future. So I'll probably make a video of that too. I'm really not sure which one's my favorite, but if you have a favorite, drop it down in the comments and let me know. I want to thank Connie, Brenda, and Kathy Jo for hosting. Please be sure to check out their channels. I'll have links to them in the description box along with the creators playlist. And please be sure to check out everybody's video. This collaboration is always full of such great ideas, tips, and inspiration. You can't go wrong. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.